I'm selling this house because I'm moving in with her. The father, who betrayed my mother, further hurt her. The house was in my father's name, but my mother had also contributed a significant amount of money to build it, and she loved this house. Yet, my father monopolized everything without listening to my mother's opinions. And 12 years after my parents got divorced, I came to understand things I couldn't at the time and decided to take revenge on my father. I couldn't forgive my father for living comfortably after hurting my mother, who had worked hard to raise me. Do you condone affairs? So, I said this during an interview at my father's company. My name is Kelly. I'm a 21-year-old senior in college, currently job hunting. My parents divorced when I was young, and we moved to my mother's hometown, causing a significant change in my environment and leading to some instability in my mental health. In school, because I wasn't very sociable, making friends was difficult. I lacked the courage to initiate conversations. Therefore, for the 2 years from transferring schools until graduating elementary school, I felt isolated and often became sad reminiscing about friends from my previous school. Moreover, my mother was working all day, so the time we could spend together decreased, and I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. My grandparents were caring, but having always been with my parents, I found it hard to open up to them. However, things settled down when I entered middle school. Many students were from different elementary schools, so I finally met people who didn't judge me. I made friends and gradually started to brighten up, deciding to stop being constantly sad. Also, I resolved not to be a burden on my mother and focused more on my studies. I was able to receive a scholarship that covered my tuition for college, and my days were filled with studying and part-time work. I wanted to make my mother proud and ensure she could live a calm and peaceful life, which made my busy life feel fulfilling. Although I became more sociable over time, the trauma from my past didn't completely vanish. Up until 4th grade, when my parents got divorced, I lived a normal family life with both my parents. As a child, I was introverted, had friends, but often spent holidays with my family. I think I was a child who loved my family. We had meals together in the morning and evening, and there was a peaceful time of family togetherness after dinner. However, at some point, my father began coming home late from work, and there were days when he didn't return before I went to bed. My father had already been promoted to a position of responsibility by then, and I was told by my mother that he couldn't come home because of work. Although I felt lonely, I understood that our current lifestyle was thanks to my father's job. So, I wished his work would end early. These days continued until one night, when I woke up and heard my parents arguing. There had never been such heated arguments before, so out of curiosity and anxiety, I approached them. Tentatively peeking, I saw my father angry, saying as he left the living room with his luggage, "Enough! I prefer her over you. It's over, we're getting a divorce." At these words, my mother burst into tears, and my father ignored her and headed for the entrance. "Dad!" Knowing what divorce meant, I feared I might never see my father again and ran towards him, trying to stop him. I had always thought of him as a kind father who played with me, so I hoped he would stop. "Get out of my way!" However, my father glanced at me and, without hesitation, pushed me away, even though he had never been rough or unkind before. Thrown with force, I tumbled down the hallway, bruising myself. The shock of being yelled at and pushed away by my father, combined with the pain from the fall, made me burst into tears. I didn't want to believe it, but the physical pain made the reality sink in, making me even more sorrowful. Confused about why my father suddenly became so cold towards me, without understanding the reason, I couldn't stop crying. My mother hugged me as I cried, but my father ignored my tears and left the house without looking back. Watching him leave, I felt abandoned by my father and cried even more. This incident made me fearful of trusting anyone other than my mother for a while, making me even more introverted. After that, my father didn't return, and we continued living in the house, but a few days later, my father came back. I harbored a fleeting hope that maybe we could go back to being the family we once were, but that hope was crushed in no time. "I'm moving in with her, so we're selling this house. Get out already." Showing the documents to Mom, he declared that this house was built when I was still young, but I remember Mom being so happy that we had our own home. I'm pretty sure she said it was built with the cooperation of both her and Dad. So, when Dad decided to sell the house without consulting her, Mom protested because she had contributed a significant amount to it, but ultimately, she had to give up because it was in Dad's name. That's how Mom and I were pushed out and moved to my grandparents' place. What kind of interactions happened between them after that, I don't know since I was just a kid. But I started to wonder why, even though we should have received child support, Mom worked so much. I thought it was largely for my sake, but wouldn't there be more financial leeway with the child support from Dad? So, when I was in high school and curious about it, I asked my grandparents. I thought Mom wouldn't want to tell me, and it was a shock to her too, so I couldn't ask her. What I heard from my grandparents was that Dad had dodged paying them. Mom had contacted him numerous times because nothing was being deposited, but after he went completely silent, she decided to prioritize our future lives and gave up. The reason for their divorce was, as I suspected, Dad's infidelity, and it became clear that he had betrayed our family. Understanding why Mom worked so hard after hearing this from my grandparents, I was satisfied, but anger towards Dad welled up inside me. Mom had decided not to pursue it any further, not even trying to track down Dad's address. While I was angry at Dad, who didn't seem to have any remorse, more than that, I wanted to make things easier for Mom, who was going through a tough time. She was always busy from morning till night, putting me before herself, and I wanted her to have time to relax. I always thought Mom should take more care of herself. So, with my anger towards Dad fueling me, I worked even harder in my studies to get a good job and help Mom out. It was frustrating to think of Dad living carefree, but I tried not to mind and focused on prioritizing our current lives just like Mom did. Then, as I became a college student and started to think about job hunting. To create a better resume, I was sorting through the storage room, trying to recall the past to craft my self-promotion. I stumbled upon letters from friends before I moved schools as a kid and got lost in memories while organizing the storage. Among them, I found a box I didn't recognize. Filled with curiosity about its contents, I discovered it was filled with documents from Dad's infidelity investigation. Surprised it was hidden away like this. I hadn't been dwelling on Dad but couldn't help wanting to know what happened between my parents. As I read through the documents, more detailed than what I had heard from my grandparents, the desire for revenge grew stronger. My grandparents probably chose their words carefully, not wanting to upset me, or they didn't know the details. The more I read, the more I realized Dad had done worse things than I imagined. Having been unfaithful for longer and likely not even trying to hide it from Mom when he was working late. Moreover, his affair partner was 6 years his junior, and she had been through a lot. After an accident that killed her mother, leaving her in a father-only household, she worked from a young age due to her father's after-effects. Despite her challenging life, didn't she think it wrong to destroy another family? In the evidence photos of the affair, the woman walking arm in arm with Dad was visibly pregnant, already expecting. I couldn't help but feel disgusted looking at the two of them standing there with calm faces. Without knowing anything, they might look like a happy couple in the photo. But in reality, they were two people who didn't care that my mom and I were suffering. I had been angry at Dad but tried not to let it bother me, yet seeing this, I couldn't ignore it any longer. I felt a burning desire to make them pay, but I held back. Thinking of how it would sadden Mom and considering the future of their child. Who would be about middle school age by now if the child from the pregnancy had been born? I couldn't forgive my dad and his affair partner, but acting on my emotions and seeking revenge would just end up hurting their child the same way I was hurt. I absolutely didn't want to become someone as low as my dad, and that stopped me. However, my feelings of unforgiveness were too strong, and I couldn't just let it go. A few days later, on a day off, I decided to visit the house mentioned in the investigation report. It was something from the past, so they probably weren't there anymore, but I needed to see for myself. Upon arriving, I found that the house no longer existed, which left me with mixed feelings of disappointment and relief. There was a part of me that wanted to confront my dad, ask him why he cheated, and how he could just abandon my mom and me. But knowing I probably wouldn't see him again, I decided to try and put it all behind me. However, as I was walking away, trying to forget, something in my mind hit me in front of a house. I stopped dead in my tracks, shaken. It was driven by a what-if, so I took a closer look at the house. It was a detached home, with a large yard that even had a play area for kids. Maybe because it was a holiday and school was out, I could faintly hear children's voices. If my dad had remarried his affair partner after the divorce, it wouldn't be strange for them to have started a new family. Just thinking about it made my chest tighten with a painful feeling. Then, the front door opened, and kids came out, so I moved a bit further away to watch. Following the kids, adults appeared, and even though they had aged, I recognized them as my dad and his affair partner. My dad had built a happy family with her, without supporting us. While my mom struggled, my dad was living carefree, which filled me with rage, and I clenched my fists tightly. After watching them leave the house together in a cheerful family outing, I went straight to a detective agency to inquire about my dad's current family situation. I used all the savings from my allowance and part-time job earnings to pay for the investigation. When the results came back, they confirmed that my dad had been living a prosperous life even after the divorce, with 3 children. Knowing he and his affair partner had been living without facing any consequences for their actions while my mom and I suffered made me bitter. Despite everything, I realized I still harbored anger and resentment towards my dad and his partner for living so nonchalantly after destroying our family. I wished they could experience the same kind of hardship and pain that my mom and I had gone through. Yet, I knew their children were innocent and didn't deserve to suffer because of their parents' actions. So, I decided I needed to meet and talk to them once, if only to sort out my own feelings. I calmed myself down, hoping for a rational conversation, and decided to visit them on my way home from school when the affair partner, now a stay-at-home mom, would likely be there. What kind of mindset did she have to enter into an affair with a married man and still live happily? Thinking over what I wanted to say and ask, I went to their house on a day school ended in the morning and rang the doorbell. As expected, the affair partner, Anna, answered the door. "Hello, who might you be?" she asked with a normal expression, and I confronted her. "How can you live so normally after stealing my dad and breaking up my family?" But it seemed I wasn't as calm as I thought, and my question came out more harshly than intended. "What are you talking about?" she responded, visibly taken aback by my sudden accusation. To her, perhaps the affair was something easily forgotten. That thought made my chest tighten again. As I explained everything about my dad's affair 12 years ago and our relationship, I couldn't help but cry, remembering the pain of those times. After finishing my explanation, I observed her reaction closely. What I learned then made me even more determined to seek revenge. Some time had passed, and I found myself attending a job interview. My grades were good, and I had been active in various activities, giving me plenty of points to highlight. Thanks to that, I usually passed the document screening phase without trouble, and this time, the interviewers seemed quite impressed with me even before I started speaking. There were 3 interviewers, who asked me questions while looking over my documents. Thanks to my preparation, I smoothly answered the questions, feeling quite confident from the interviewers' bright expressions and impressed demeanor. Then, at the end, they said I could ask anything I wanted, so I decided to ask something I really needed to know. "Does your company tolerate infidelity? What would you do if such a case occurred?" The interviewer, taken aback by my question, froze for a moment as if he didn't understand. Then, with a puzzled look, he said, "While we've never had a case of infidelity, I suppose some form of punishment would be applied." When asked why I was asking such a question, I laid all my cards on the table. "My father, who abandoned my mother due to his affair, works in this company, and he is currently involved in another affair within the company." One interviewer, visibly angered by my words, slammed his hand on the desk and stood up abruptly. "Are you kidding me? How dare you say such nonsense here?" he shouted, and I immediately retorted. "Please, don't shout just because I hit a nerve, Dad." I knew my father worked at this company and that he was involved in the interview process as part of HR. I had specifically applied for the interview to expose his actions. There were many applicants, and there was no guarantee my interviewer would be my dad, but I hoped to tarnish his reputation regardless. His direct confrontation added credibility to my story, and I couldn't help but feel inwardly pleased. Initially, my father didn't recognize me, likely due to the documents he was reviewing. He seemed unsettled but didn't remember my face, only realizing who I was from my name and educational background as his daughter from a previous marriage. Thinking I hadn't recognized him, he seemed relieved. Facing my angry father, I responded calmly. "So, it's true that you left Mom because of your affair, and now you're involved with a younger woman within the company, right?" "I'm only speaking the truth." Indeed, the investigation I commissioned not only covered his life after our family but also revealed his ongoing affairs. Apparently, he's quite the philanderer, having 3 children yet still fooling around. He's currently having an affair with a younger female employee at the same company, and there are photos of them looking happy together, leaving no room for denial. "Are you trying to harass me?" You think you can get away with this? He accused me of lying. He had managed to keep it hidden until now, trying to paint me as the villain to avoid punishment himself. With a smug look, I retorted. The facts speak for themselves, don't they? I was curious about the company's stance on having someone like him in a position of responsibility. My father wanted to pin the blame on me, but it wasn't going to be that easy. The other two interviewers, having witnessed our exchange, looked gravely concerned. To them, I presented the final blow by showing proof. By the way, here's the investigative report on my father's affair. I trust you'll review it and take appropriate action. My father tried to downplay my accusations, but I handed the investigative report from the detective agency to the other interviewers, asking for a proper response to the infidelity. As my father attempted to grab me, I dodged and left him with one last remark. Anna knows about this, too. She said she's coming to the company today. I had informed Anna of my father's affair, and she was furious, vowing to confront him in public to prevent any escape. Before leaving the interview room, I made it clear to my father that he had no way out. He told you? When did you meet her? He was shocked, not expecting that I knew Anna. Ignoring my stunned father, I walked out of the room. Even after closing the door, I could hear his shouting, drawing stares from other applicants. Though it would typically be an uncomfortable atmosphere, spilling everything during the interview made me feel liberated, knowing my father's life wouldn't be smooth sailing from here on out. I came here solely for revenge against my father, so failing the interview wasn't a concern. As I walked down the hallway, intending to leave, I heard running footsteps behind me. Turning around, I saw my father with a furious expression, his face red with anger as he lunged at me. I dodged in surprise, avoiding injury but still stumbled and fell. Looking down at me with a stern face, he shouted, "What have you done? If it weren't for you." As he attempted to hit me again, I braced myself, covering my head with my arms, preparing for the impact. Before he could hit me, my father froze in place. "What are you doing to Kelly? And you told me you were single. You've been lying to me?" Anna arrived just in time, seeing my father about to hit me. She swung her purse, hitting him and shielding me from him. "Anna, it's not like that." My father flustered at Anna's sudden appearance, starting a fight while being overwhelmed by Anna's fury as she hit him with her purse, causing a scene. It turned out Anna didn't know my father was married when I confronted her about the affair. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. It must have been hard for you. I'll definitely make amends. I'm really sorry." She apologized tearfully. Further conversations revealed that she met my father through work. He had been helping Anna, who was struggling in a single-parent family. My father had hidden his marital status, leading to their relationship. Anna, living with her father who had after-effects from an accident, worked right after high school, which naturally led to her developing feelings for my father, who was helping her out. I had always thought the affair partner would be a terrible person, but it turned out Anna was another victim of my father. Anna was unaware of my father's deeds until now. I then remembered that Anna had been pregnant at the time. Perhaps he didn't want to burden a pregnant woman. While contemplating this, I watched Anna apologizing with tears streaming down her face. I had thought all my father's affair partners were despicable, but seeing Anna, it didn't seem like she was trying to deceive me. So, I told her about my father's current affair with a coworker. The investigation report included information on his ongoing infidelity. Anna, being a victim herself, had the right to know about my father's current affairs. When I showed her the documents, Anna became furious with my father. "Lying about being single, marrying me, and now this again. What kind of person are you? I will never forgive you." The betrayal by my father deepened Anna's anger, and we decided to take revenge together. Originally, I had applied to my father's company and was scheduled to go for a second interview. We planned for Anna to come to the company on the day of my interview to publicly denounce my father. The two of us caused quite a scene in the company's hallways, with other male employees holding my father back and security arriving, leading us to leave the company. The commotion drew a large crowd, including the woman from the investigation photos, who watched from the shadows with a tense expression. Exposing my father's misdeeds was my revenge, successfully carried out in broad daylight. Afterward, my father, who could have been a senior director, was demoted due to the affair. Working uncomfortably known for his misdeeds. Previously regarded as a family-oriented good boss, His reputation inside the company plummeted to being labeled the worst man, treated coldly by everyone. The woman involved in the affair quietly resigned from the company. Moreover, Anna demanded child support from my father, leading to their divorce. With the company's cooperation, my father couldn't escape paying. During the divorce mediation, Anna learned that my father hadn't paid child support to my mother either, uncovering his gambling as well. Although he claimed to only play occasionally, it was discovered he had lied about the family's savings to fund his gambling. Discovering these additional secrets beyond the affair, Anna was even more enraged. She managed to make my father pay child support. My father tried to deny everything until the end, making the divorce proceedings drag on. But Anna persistently confronted him, and the scandal became known even to those outside the company who were previously unaware. As a result, my father was completely ostracized. Once the divorce was finalized, Anna attempted to give me the alimony as an apology.
This might not make up for everything, but I'm sorry for the trouble I caused. Please accept this.
However, since I had kept my revenge against my father a secret from my mother, I declined the money.
Anna, you're also a victim of my father. Please keep the money for your children.
My mother seemed to have moved past her issues with my father, so there was no point in bringing it up again. Considering how much my mother must have suffered, I thought she wouldn't want to relive those memories, even though my father had faced consequences. Moreover, I harbor no resentment towards Anna and the children, who were also victims of my father. On the contrary, I worried about the challenges they'd face as a single-parent family and began checking in on them more frequently. So, I sometimes meet with the kids and play together, forming a close bond. I can only hope these children grow up to be nothing like their father. Getting to know Anna better, I realized she's usually calm and not the type to raise her voice. Contrary to what one might expect from someone who had such a fierce confrontation with my father at the company. Knowing Anna like this, I pondered if this resilience is what it means to be a strong mother, and I wondered if my mother felt the same way during her divorce. Afterward, I successfully got into my top choice company, and when I told my mom, she was thrilled. Seeing my mom happy about my growth makes me happy too. With the burden of my father behind us, I purely enjoy this happiness. I'm determined to lessen my mom's burden even more once I start working. While I can't forgive my father for what he did, he has already received his punishment, so I want to live happily without giving him another thought.